Picture it, Saturday night, 1986, at the most popular gay bar in town. The clock strikes 9, the music stops, and everyone turns their attention to the TV monitors for the highlight of the evening.
Thank you for being a friend.
The Golden Girls is one of the luckiest accidents in television history. An 80s sitcom featuring 4 retired friends who share a home in Miami, The Golden Girls stars Bea Arthur as the sarcastic Dorothy.
Why don't I just wear a sign that says too ugly to live?
Betty White as innocent Rose.
Life is a giant weenie roast and I'm the biggest weenie.
Rue McClanahan as man-hungry Blanche.
As jumpy as a virgin at a prison rodeo.
And Estelle Getty as wisecracking Sophia.
How long is this story? I'm 80. I have to plan.
Today it's known worldwide as a beloved TV classic, but originally it wasn't even supposed to be a real show. Proposed as a joke at NBC, the concept was meant to be a parody of a sitcom, a premise too ridiculous to ever succeed, until one executive saw the potential and assembled a dream team to pull it off, including a daring producer who had a history of pushing the envelope. So how did a show about 4 retirees that was never supposed to get made wind up becoming a worldwide hit? And what makes it particularly important to gay men? Hey, I'm Matt Baum, I make videos about pop culture, and this is the story of the Golden Girls and its legacy, from the forgotten 5th Golden Girl to the Valentine's Day condom craze to Sophia's secret message to one of the show's gay writers. Before we can talk about the Golden Girls' gay fandom, we have to talk about its unlikely origins. On September 17th, 1984, NBC broadcast a 1-hour special to promote their upcoming fall season. Wedged between celebrity banter about a new show called Cheers,
I guess this comes as no surprise. Men are always chasing us.
And the NBC dancers, out come the stars of 2 popular NBC shows. From Night Court, it's Selma Diamond, and from Remington Steele, it's Doris Roberts, who would go on to play the mom on Everyone Loves Raymond a decade later. Tonight, they're here to tell the audience about another upcoming NBC show.
We're here to introduce a show that takes place in the most wonderful resort in the world, Miami. This is a show about sitting on the beach.
No, Selma, honey, no. This show is not called Miami Nice. This is called Miami Vice.
Then out come the stars of Miami Vice, and the special moves on. And ordinarily, that would have been the end of it. But sitting in the audience was NBC president Brandon Tartikoff, and he couldn't help noticing how funny it was to see those 2 actresses joking around about retirement activities and also lusting after hunks.
They've got to stand right next to me.
Another NBC executive later said that they were a highlight of an otherwise super boring night. And so behind the scenes, Tartikoff started to wonder, could that one-off Miami Nice joke, a show about retiree life in Miami, be so crazy it just might work? He decided to give it a shot. And by the way, a lot of these details about the show's development come from the book Golden Girls Forever by Jim Colucci. There's a link to that in the description. There were a couple factors working in the Miami Nice concept's favor. For one thing, Miami was a particularly trendy city in the early 80s, so it was an attractive setting for a TV show.
Miami.
It's my Miami.
Miami's for me.
For another, Tartikoff had been looking for a way to adapt the movie How to Marry a Millionaire, a movie from the 50s about a group of women friends all looking for love.
Letting you in on the grand and glorious adventures of 3 fascinating females who pooled their beauty in the greatest plot against mankind since Helen of Troy, Marie Antoinette, and Venus de Milo.
And one more factor? The previous year, the overwhelming success of The Cosby Show had shown NBC executives that there was a huge, underutilized talent pool of black actors that TV had just been ignoring for decades. Executives started to wonder, maybe the same was true of actresses of a certain age.
We realized that they were tapping into voices that just weren't on television. I said, well, why don't we do something with that?
But at that point, the entire concept was just, what if we made a show about retired single women in Miami? They needed somebody who could actually develop that into a series, and also to find a better name for it than the working title of Miami Nice, or their even worse second choice, Ladies' Day. And that's when they turned to Susan Harris. Susan was a writer and producer and had some hits in the 70s, starting with Soap, which featured Billy Crystal as the first recurring gay character on a successful sitcom. And then she also had the spin-off Benson. But more recently, Susan Harris had a string of flops. Shows that you probably don't remember, like I'm a Big Girl Now, starring Martin Short, It Takes Two, starring Helen Hunt in a very familiar kitchen, and Hail to the Chief, which, like Soap, featured a recurring gay character.
All my friends were playing war with their G.I. Joes. I wrapped mine in a towel and sent them to a bathhouse.
Susan saw a lot of potential in the Miami Nice idea, and especially after all of her recent flops, she was eager to make something great. But it seemed like a long shot. A show about Florida retirees that was based on a one-off joke from a commercial, helmed by someone whose best shows might be behind her, operating off a hunch about untapped talent? The success of this project was going to come down to the cast. That kicked off a laborious process that nearly went off the rails multiple times. Susan and her team wanted to cast the elderly mother character first, and they got lucky early on when they came across 60-year-old Estelle Getty. Estelle was born in 1922 on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, and had decided to become an actress early in life because of her love of vaudeville. Success for her had been elusive. For most of her life, she'd worked as a secretary by day and appeared on tiny off-Broadway shows at night. Just 3 years earlier, she'd found her first mainstream success in Harvey Fierstein's play Torch Song Trilogy, and her agent had convinced her to come out to Los Angeles for a handful of auditions. One of those auditions was for 80-year-old Sophia, and from the moment Estelle walked in the room, she nailed the character. And it didn't hurt that she brought her own purse, a little bamboo thing she'd spotted a few days earlier at a thrift store on Fairfax. So with that, they found their first cast member, and she even came with her own props. The rest of the cast was a little more challenging. Susan had her heart set on the actress Bea Arthur for the character of Dorothy. She seemed perfect. The two of them had already worked together on Bea's prior TV show, Maude, and Bea was known for her tough, no-nonsense attitude. In fact, before she was an actress, Bea was a truck driver in the Marines during World War II. One officer wrote that she was a good worker, quote, if she has her own way. There was just one problem. Not that Bea was actually a year older than Estelle Getty, who'd be playing her mother. The problem was that Bea didn't want to do it. So, over Susan's objections, NBC brought in another Broadway star, Elaine Stritch, to audition. It kinda made sense. When Bea's show Maude was adapted to the UK version, Elaine had played the Maude character. But Elaine Stritch's audition was a disaster. She started out by asking if she could modify the dialogue.
Here, you've got the houseboy entering to set the bar up, and my line is, Ying, don't forget the hors d'oeuvres. Would it be okay if I said, Ying, don't forget the fucking hors d'oeuvres?
That didn't go over well. For this role, it was clear Elaine was just wrong. Meanwhile, they'd managed to get two other actresses interested in the show. Rue McClanahan was a 50-something actress from Oklahoma who'd worked on stage, on film, and TV for decades, recently as a shy character named Vivian on Maude, and after that, on Mama's Family with an actress named Betty White. Betty had been a Los Angeles television icon since the 40s. She was best known for hosting a daily talk show, appearing on game shows, and also playing the man-hungry Sue Ann Nivens on The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Everybody felt that Rue and Betty were perfect for the Golden Girls, but not in the way that we know them now. Betty was going to play the sexually adventurous Blanche, similar to her Sue Ann character, and Rue was going to play naive Rose, similar to her role as Vivian.
They had me originally playing Blanche. They had sort of written it with that in mind.
And I called my agent and I said, I love this script and I want to audition for Blanche. And she said, forget it. They've got Betty White practically pegged for that role. It's just almost set. They've almost offered it to her.
But when they started running scenes together, director Jay Sandrich had an idea. He asked them to switch.
So I said to her, would you mind reading the other part?
Oh, I said, okay, I'll do that. So I did. Of course, I'd already studied it.
Suddenly, the two were playing against type and having a lot more fun. And when Bea Arthur found out about the change, she said, now that is very interesting. Bea signed a contract to join the cast on a Friday, and on Monday, they started rehearsals on the show, now retitled The Golden Girls. The premise, as fleshed out by Susan Harris, was strong. 4 senior women, all close friends, share a house together in Miami. Their husbands are out of the picture, their kids are grown, and even though mainstream culture may have counted them out because of their age, they're determined to live their retirement years to the fullest. Rehearsals and tapings went great, and then finally, on September 14th, 1985, almost exactly 1 year after the Miami Nice joke aired, the Golden Girls made their debut, and America got its first glimpse of Dorothy.
Will you look at this? She has more colors than Benjamin Moore paints.
Rose.
Oysters move very slowly. You have to watch very closely.
Blanche.
At our age, long engagements don't make sense.
Sophia.
Everyone is fine. No one died. The home burnt down.
And Coco.
What's that?
Enchiladas rancheros.
Why don't you just shoot me?
Wait, who's Coco? Well, he's the girl's gay houseboy, of course. Susan Harris had included a lot of gay characters on her shows, and Coco was a sort of continuation of Jody from Soap. Played by Charles Levin, who'd played a gay sex worker on Hill Street Blues, the plan was for Coco to be the show's younger voice. He's there in the kitchen for Dorothy to complain to when no one else is around.
They're expressing themselves.
Yeah, well, I expressed myself. I told them they had to leave. They were too ugly to look at.
He offers a quippy remark now and then.
Rose, Charlie is dead.
Why tell her?
And then there's a hint of some friction with Sophia.
Can I get something to eat, or is the fancy man in the kitchen?
And while Coco as a character is fine,
He's an okay petunia.
he just doesn't quite fit in. In fact, Coco was originally going to be played by Jeffrey Jones, the principal from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and imagine what that show would have been like.
You're in big trouble now. Yeah, shut up.
But when Jeffrey Jones auditioned, he said he just didn't see why the character was necessary. Turned out he was right, and Susan made the tough call to cut the character after the pilot so they could focus on the dynamic between the women.
Sophia came in and was so strong that that's why they deleted the housekeeper.
But that wasn't the last time gay characters would visit the house. Now, the premise of the pilot is straightforward enough. Blanche, who owns the house, has been seeing a gentleman for a while, and he asks her to marry him. She agrees, and while the girls and Coco support her, privately they're worried about what that means for them all living together in the future.
We can't afford to buy a house. What do we have for collateral? A gay cook?
In the end, it turns out the man is already married and he's arrested and taken away just minutes before the wedding. And hey, do you recognize that policeman?
Is there a Blanche Hollingsworth here?
It's Meshack Taylor, Anthony from Designing Women, and more importantly, Hollywood Montrose from the Mannequin Cinematic Universe. I've got a whole other video about Hollywood, one of the greatest gay characters in film history. There's a link to that in the description. Anyway, Blanche is heartbroken for a while, but then she comes to a realization that I think is at the heart of why the show works so well.
You're my family, and you make me happy to be alive.
This isn't a traditional family. It's a group that came together in friendship. They grew close and they now support each other. An arrangement that's familiar to a lot of gay people, especially back then, when they were often rejected by family and had to find support outside of traditional mom, dad, and kids family units. The episode ends with everyone going out to lunch, except Sophia.
The fancy man and I are going to the dog track.
So how did the pilot do? It was the #1 show of the week. Of everyone watching TV that night in the US, about a quarter of all sets were tuned to this pilot.
They hit a home run.
We just knew that we were in. I mean, we didn't even have to worry about ratings or everything. We knew that this was a smash.
Not bad for a throwaway joke from a network promo. Clearly, Susan and the cast had hit on something that was popular across a broad range of viewers. And following the pilot, the show quickly picked up a gay following, growing in popularity over season 1. And before long, gay bars made Golden Girls viewing parties a regular thing every Saturday night. I spoke to Golden Girls writer Stan Zimmerman about that phenomenon. Here's what he said.
That literally in West Hollywood, they would stop everything at Saturday at 9 o'clock and on the video bar screens, they would play Golden Girls, and I would go there, and because I'd want a free drink. I'd watch the show with everybody else, and it just became a phenomenon.
Gay audiences might have felt particularly comfortable with this cast because all of them had been involved in projects that were sympathetic to gay issues. For example, B. Arthur had done 2 gay episodes of Maude, including one in which he defends a local gay bar from homophobic protesters.
Do you approve of homosexuals?
They are human beings. They exist. It's like asking me if I approve of dwarfs.
Well, that's different. There's no such thing as gay dwarfs.
Come on, Arthur, you've read Snow White.
Rue McClanahan had appeared in a low-budget film called Some of My Best Friends Are, set entirely inside a gay bar.
God, what a hideous night.
Betty White had appeared on Love, Sydney, an NBC sitcom from a few years earlier, starring Tony Randall as a gay man.
My, what a funny-looking little pony you are, Megan.
And Estelle Getty had the biggest queer credentials of all, thanks to her rise to fame in Harvey Fierstein's Broadway show Torch Song Trilogy. She'd played the mother of a drag queen in that.
David is gay.
But he's only been here 6 months.
But as gay-friendly as the cast of The Golden Girls was, not everyone in Hollywood was so accepting. Here's that writer, Stan Zimmerman, recalling how hostile the industry could be.
We had to be in the closet as writers on season 1. That was the climate in Hollywood then. You brought women to functions, you were told that by your agents, and in the room, you didn't discuss your personal life.
In the 1980s, a young writer could easily have been fired if he came out to the wrong person. If word got around that he was queer, it could mean the end of his career. But Stan had somebody looking out for him on the inside.
And it was really Estelle Getty, God bless her, that's how we became good friends off the set, was one of the first days, may have been the first day that I saw her. She met us, and then she was like, come here. And she's like, this little, 3-foot tall woman took us behind the set, and she's like, you're one of us. And I thought, Jewish, which is weird to like, there's lots of Jews in Hollywood, you might have heard. And she's like, no, gay. And she considered herself part of the community. Before the word ally was even there, she was like, the pioneer of allies, because she had done Torch Song Trilogy on Broadway. And she said, I'm going to protect you. She knew the environment in Hollywood.
Knowing that Estelle had his back, Stan stuck with the show. And by the end of the first season, he picked up a nomination for a Writers Guild Award for his work. The show itself was nominated for 9 Emmys, winning 3. It was clear The Golden Girls was a huge hit.
Estelle and Rue and Bea and I all thank you. We're a match set. You can't split us up.
Now, after the disappearance of Coco, the show had avoided gay issues. But as season 2 got underway, that was about to change. First, with a gay mink.
They're making a stove! Don't count your money yet. Those are the 2 males.
Then with the season 2 episode, Isn't It Romantic, in November of 1986, which asks the question, what would happen if a lesbian developed a crush on Rose? This episode didn't come from one of the regular staff writers. Instead, it came from a fan. TV writer Jeff Dutiel had watched all of season 1 and loved it, although he missed Coco. So over the summer, he wrote a script of his own. As luck would have it, he noticed one of the producers' names, Winifred Hervey. They'd actually worked together on a show a couple years earlier, and Jeff took a chance on sending her his script. This was a huge long shot. With a few exceptions, TV shows almost never take unsolicited scripts. But unbeknownst to Jeff, the showrunners had been looking for a chance to do a gay episode. They called him in, bought the script, and went into production. The plot of the episode has Dorothy's old college friend Jean coming to visit. Jean's played by Lois Nettleton, who'd portrayed a lesbian a few years earlier on the show Medical Center.
Lesbians are not a bunch of harridans consumed by a hatred of the opposite sex. Oh, some are, yes, some, but that's too bad for them.
Only Dorothy and Sophia know that Jean is gay.
The lesbian thing, do you keep it under your hat or what?
And they're not sure they should tell the other girls.
Hey, you know your friends better than I do. If you think they're the kind of people who can handle it, I'd prefer to tell them.
Here we are, ice cream clowns with sugar cone hats for everybody.
It'll be our little secret.
This concern about whether or not it's a good idea for a queer person to come out to certain people would have been very familiar to gay viewers. It even mirrors the fear that Stan had about being out on this very show. In fact, Jean's line was originally, if you think your friends are sophisticated enough to handle it. But NBC executive Warren Ashley made them change it for fear that homophobes would think that they were being called unsophisticated. Over the course of her visit, Jean develops a crush on Rose.
Jean in love with Little Miss Muffet, come on!
And that prompts a heart-to-heart between Dorothy and Sophia. Sophia has a line that could easily just be Estelle talking.
If one of my kids was gay, I wouldn't love him one bit less. I would wish him all the happiness in the world.
These words are so similar to her comments to Stan behind the set, an emphatic, unmistakable statement of support. But now she gets to express her support on camera. Blanche hears them talking and she pops her head in, and when they tell her Jean's a lesbian...
Isn't Danny Thomas one?
Not Lebanese, Blanche. Lesbian.
Now, I don't know if TV star Danny Thomas was a lesbian or not, but what I do know is that his son, Tony Thomas, is one of the show's producers. He's the Thomas whose name you see at the end of every episode. Meanwhile, Rose and Jean have been growing closer, and Rose has no idea how Jean really feels. When she hears that Jean's planning to spend the night on the sofa, Rose insists on sharing her bed. And before joining her, Jean tries to let Rose know what's going on.
I'm quite fond of you.
I'm fond of you, too.
And by the way, you see how Jean goes to the sofa in the background? That wasn't originally part of the script. It was added to make sure that audiences knew the characters didn't sleep together. The next morning, Rose is upset that nobody told her.
Honey, I didn't even know if you'd know what a lesbian was.
I could have looked it up.
Ironically, of all the cast, Betty White was probably the one who least needed to be educated on lesbians, because in real life, she was a loving mother to a lesbian stepdaughter, Sarah, a karate instructor in Chicago. In fact, their close relationship once led the National Enquirer to label Betty Pride of the Lesbians. Anyway, Rose is a little uncomfortable at first, but she quickly comes around.
I don't understand these kinds of feelings. But if I did understand, I think I'd be very flattered and proud that you thought of me that way.
And with that, they agree to be friends. It's a very sweet story, one of my favorite episodes, and one of the most popular with gay fans. And by the way, if you want to listen to an audio adaptation, which the roles have been changed to be played by a close approximation of Bernadette Peters, Carol Channing, Judy Garland, and Gollum, check out my friend Bill Fair's podcast, JudyCast. There's a link to that in the description. When this episode came out, there were vanishingly few queer characters on TV, much less characters defending and befriending them. The Golden Girls was way out ahead of most other sitcoms here, sticking its neck out on a topic that could easily have alienated a lot of viewers. But just the opposite happened. This was the number 4 most watched show the week that it aired, with 24 million households tuning in. When award season came around, this episode won an Emmy and a Directors Guild Award for Outstanding Direction. Betty White and Lois Nelton were both nominated for Emmys, and Jeff Dutiel was nominated for Outstanding Writing for the spec script. The episode helped open a lot more doors for Jeff. In the years that followed, he worked on shows like Rock, which featured the first same-sex wedding ceremony on American primetime TV, and also the show In the House, which has an episode where RuPaul teaches LL Cool J all about drag.
You're a tall glass of water.
And for the Golden Girls, the success on this episode paved a path for many more gay episodes over the next few years. For example, in 1988, there's the season 4 episode, Scared Straight. Blanche's brother Clayton is coming to town. He's played by Monty Markham, who in real life is an old friend of Betty White's, and he's got a secret. This time, it's Rose who's the first to find out.
Clayton, you're that thing that everyone said Olga Larson's nephew was because he wore paisley clogs and gave out puff pastry on Halloween.
At her urging, he comes out to Blanche, and she doesn't take it well.
You look me in the face and tell me you really are what you just said you are.
I think you heard me the first time, Blanche.
According to Rue, this was a hard role to play. She later said, "I'm not homophobic," and Blanche was. But she starts to come around after a little heart-to-heart.
I just feel like I don't know you anymore.
I'm the same person. I always was.
No, you're not.
And Blanche starts to realize just how much she has in common with her brother.
You used to be just like me.
Great looking.
Yes.
Charming.
Yes.
Irresistible to men.
God, Clayton, you are me.
Leave it to Blanche to find common ground with someone through their sex lives. Just as with Betty and Jean, the episode ends with Rue supporting her gay brother. A happy ending for everybody. This episode aired on December 10th, 1988, just a few weeks after the first ever National Coming Out Day. It works as a sort of tutorial for how to come out, making Clayton a kind of role model for people trying to work up the courage. It also shows audiences how to respond. First with a bad response that results in Clayton walking out, and then with a good response, with Blanche listening and accepting him. And it does all that while being funny and touching and ending on a laugh.
I just want to say that I would be very proud to have any one of you date my brother.
I'd rather date you, lady.
Sweet Jesus, I've just done the impossible. I converted one.
The episode's message is that gays and straights aren't so different, and same-sex love is no less valid. That seems like no big deal for a message today, but for 1988, that was a pretty bold stance for a sitcom. And that message returns a few episodes later on a Valentine's Day episode. In one scene, we see the girls preparing to go on a cruise and getting a few supplies. Rue suggests that they should stock up on protection.
In this day and age, it might be a good idea to take along some protection.
Rose doesn't quite get it.
Didn't you, Grip?
Condoms, Rose! Condoms, condoms, condoms! Calm down, lady. You just get out of prison?
That turns a few heads in the store, and then Rue has a big speech.
Haven't you ever seen 3 vibrant, healthy, sexually active women before? We're going to walk out of here today with our heads held high, secure in the knowledge that what we have done is morally and socially responsible.
It's pretty remarkable to see a show talk about condoms so openly, and to have main characters with sex lives that aren't about procreation, starting a family. They just have sex for fun. That's fine and responsible. In fact, it's something to be proud of because they're safeguarding the health of themselves and their partners. This is something you can see across the whole run of the show. The Golden Girls' sex lives actually have a lot in common with those of gay people. Later in the same episode, Blanche is sitting alone at a bar and she meets a young man who's about to propose, but he's feeling very nervous. She perks up at that. She tells him how her husband proposed to her. She gives him a little pep talk to encourage him.
Oh, come on now. We may be from different generations, but some things never change. Love is love, period.
And then, maybe you can see where this is going.
Oh, Victor, come on. Let's get a table. There's something I have to tell you.
This is maybe even more bold of a plot beat than the condom scene. Almost nobody was talking about marriage equality in 1989, mostly just a handful of activists and academics. A few years earlier, a Harvard student had written a thesis about same-sex marriage, and it was met with total disbelief. Gay marriage wouldn't enter mainstream national conversation for a couple more years, and it wouldn't be legalized nationwide for another 15. But Here's the Golden Girls predicting the slogan.
Love is love.
Another topic they were ahead of the curve on, HIV. In a season 5 episode, Rose learns that she might have been exposed to HIV due to a blood transfusion. This was before all blood donations were tested for HIV, as they are today. Rose gets tested, but she has to wait 3 days for the results. And in that time, the girls have some frank talk about safe sex.
Parents don't talk to their kids about sex. I mean, this is so important, you think they could get past their embarrassment.
And some frank talk about how stressful it is to get tested.
Come on, if that test turns out to be positive, you're not going to want to be around me.
No, that is not true.
When this aired in 1990, treatment options weren't great. It would still be 5 years before the discovery of antiretroviral drugs that made HIV a more manageable condition. By the time this episode aired, over 100,000 Americans had died from HIV-related complications. The show doesn't shy away from showing how upset Rose is about not knowing her status.
I'm tired of pretending I feel okay so you won't say take it easy. And I'm tired of you saying take it easy because you're afraid I'm going to fall apart.
But we also see how the household unites to help her through this stressful time.
We're the only family Rose has here, so we have to help her through whatever she's going through.
It's really touching to see how much all the women in their own ways care for Rose, sometimes with just a few comforting words.
It's been a bad week.
It'll get better.
Behind the scenes, this episode was personal for many of the people who worked on it, especially Estelle Getty. Remember, she'd been in Torch Song Trilogy on Broadway in the early 80s, and she saw a lot of people she was close to come down with a mysterious disease, fall ill, and pass away in a matter of months. These were more than just colleagues for her. They were like family. In the early days of the epidemic, she was desperate to help. Here's her friend Stan Zimmerman.
You know, when she was on Broadway with Torch Song Trilogy and AIDS started to happen, I just remember the stories and she would tell me. She brought like chicken soup thinking that was going to cure the cast members that were falling ill. And, you know, finally they decided, no, Estelle, these men are going to die. There's no saving these guys. So I think in her heart, she just wanted to help and do anything she could.
After Golden Girls was a hit, Estelle used her high profile to host fundraisers and educate the public about the virus.
I'm here because I'm here for any good cause, and AIDS is my most important cause right now.
God bless her that she took her stardom at such an elder age and ran with it. You know, she wasn't going to sit home.
When this episode was shot, Estelle's nephew Stephen Scher was living with HIV back east in North Carolina. Over the next few months, his health started to deteriorate, and Estelle arranged for him to move to LA so she could help take care of him. This episode was also personal for Peter Bate, one of the editors who worked on the show. His partner was HIV positive, and in addition to caring for the love of his life, Peter was dealing with an overwhelming amount of shame. When he was working on this episode, there was one line that he said felt like it made his heart stop.
AIDS is not a bad person's disease, Rose. It is not God punishing people for their sins.
He said that line made him break down in the editing booth. When he regained his composure, he said everything had changed. He no longer thought of himself as a bad person. It was a message that a lot of people needed to hear, and Golden Girls was able to provide it way out in front of most other television shows, which continued to struggle with messaging on HIV even in the decade that followed.
Walker told me I have AIDS.
But one of Golden Girls' boldest moments came in season 6 with the episode Sisters of the Bride on January 12th, 1991. For this one, Blanche's brother Clayton returns, which is pretty special since recurring gay characters had almost disappeared on sitcoms after the 1970s. Clayton was part of a new wave of gay guest characters who actually came back. Not only that, but this time, he brought someone with him.
This is Doug. He's my friend. My very special friend.
Well, any friend of Clay's.
And he's got an announcement to make.
Blanche, we're getting married.
Well, that's impossible, Clayton. Brothers can't marry sisters.
Dorothy clears up the confusion, and watch how much laughter Betty White is able to get out of just one word.
Blanche and Clayton aren't getting married. Clayton and Doug are.
Oh.
At the time of this episode, marriage equality was just starting to appear in mainstream news. A lesbian couple in Hawaii had just filed the first major lawsuit over marriage equality, and Rose's 3 O's were basically the 3 different ways that most people responded. A few people accepted it, a lot of people were horrified, and everybody else was confused. The idea that same-sex couples could marry was brand new to most people, and the vast majority of the country was against it. And so is Blanche. When Clayton and his partner Doug come to a fancy banquet with the girls, she does everything she can to hide the fact that they're a couple.
And this is Doug. He's my...
In effect, she's trying to force them back into the closet. And to their credit, the guys don't stand for it.
Doug is a part of the family now, my family. And if you don't like it, then you don't have to be a part of my family.
That's harsh, but for many people, it's the right thing to do. If Blanche can't accept her brother, if she doesn't want him to fall in love, he might be better off without her. But then, it's Sophia to the rescue. She has a late-night heart-to-heart with Blanche and asks a question that totally changes Blanche's perspective.
Why did you marry George?
We loved each other. We wanted to make a lifetime commitment, wanted everybody to know.
Remember a few episodes ago when Blanche met a gay guy at a bar, unwittingly encouraged him to propose to his boyfriend, and then realized that love is love? She's about to get a little reminder.
Everyone wants someone to grow old with, and shouldn't everyone have that chance?
Sophia, I think I see what you're getting at.
I don't think you do. Blanche, will you marry me?
This short exchange, about 20 seconds long, explains marriage equality better than most of the next 2 decades of advocacy for the freedom to marry. Blanche reconciles with Clayton, again, and welcomes Doug into the family.
Now, he's not perfect. Has a stubborn streak and a bad temper.
And he snores.
That'll just be our little secret.
Just put yourself in the position of a gay person seeing this episode in 1991. Imagine your relatives had rejected you for being queer, refused to recognize your partner, accused you of destroying the institution of marriage. To see a show where a sibling comes around and accepts her gay brother, his partner, and their desire to get married must have seemed like a dream come true for so many gay viewers. Not only that, but the episode portrays Clayton Doug so sympathetically that according to writer Jamie Wooten, while this episode got some hate mail, the show actually got more angry letters about B. Arthur's hair.
I look like Barbara Bush, don't I? Don't I? Be honest. But cute.
Now these are just a handful of the episodes with queer characters and themes. There's lots more, including a multi-season storyline involving Dorothy's sibling.
Your brother Phil is gay? I knew it. When he was a kid, we couldn't keep him away from those gladiator movies.
The Phil character is complicated and can be read in a bunch of different ways. The podcast Gayest Episode Ever has a great deep dive on how the show handled that storyline, with help from the podcast Totally Trans. I've got a link to that conversation in the description. And then there's other queer characters, like the time Dorothy met her match with a gay caterer.
Now look here, Stretch.
And the time the girls went on a talk show and were introduced like this.
Women who live together. Does society make it tougher? We'll find out when we talk to 4 lesbians today.
I'll be posting bonus videos over on Patreon about those episodes, and also the story about the real-life feud between B. Arthur and Betty White behind the scenes. Head over to patreon.com/mattbaum to watch those bonus videos. As the show gained fame, and then after it ended, the cast had a variety of other projects, both on and off camera. Some were less successful, like the spin-off Golden Palace, which didn't last long, but does feature War Machine from the MCU.
Don't listen, Rose. Trust me, we did the right thing.
And Cheech.
I'm back.
Dorothy?
Other projects were memorably strange, like the time B. Arthur met Steve Urkel. Or the time Blanche ruled over a subterranean kingdom of Alfs.
After tonight, I'll be back to my old tricks again.
And what I think might be the greatest cat video ever made.
Somebody told me there's a cat over here I should see.
Oh my gosh! Kitty cats everywhere!
I've got more about those projects over on Patreon too. And the cast also did some far more important work off-screen. For example, Estelle Getty continued to stick by her gay friends and family. In one interview she said, "I'm tremendously grateful to the gay community. They put me where I am today. They discovered me and they stuck by me, and they've been very loyal." Then in 1996, seeing how much help her gay friends and family needed throughout the epidemic, Estelle opened a hospice for people with HIV in Greensboro, North Carolina, the hometown of her nephew Stephen, who'd passed away in 1992. It's called Beacon Place, and it's still operating to this day, providing comfort, care, and dignity to people at the end of their lives. Rue used her celebrity status to help raise money for LGBT causes. Here she is in a pride parade and at Broadway benefits for equal rights. Betty was an outspoken advocate for equality for the rest of her life.
If two people in love want to get married, let them get married. Just mind your own business and don't worry about it.
She lent her name to anti-bullying programs.
I'm Betty White, but this October 17th, call me Betty Purple.
And the whole cast of Hot in Cleveland will be joining in on Spirit Day and showing our support for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender youth.
And of course, she was a loving stepmom to Sarah and always remained the pride of the lesbians. The biggest impact may have come from B. Arthur, who embraced her status as a gay icon.
I may be very pro-gay, but I think they have the greatest taste and the greatest wit.
aside from being fabulous hairdressers and everything else.
Then in 2005, Bea got a call from her friend Ray Clausen, a set designer. He told her about a new nonprofit in New York that supported unhoused queer youth, the Ali Fournet Center. Queer kids are disproportionately thrown out of their homes, and at the time, the center was struggling to keep up with the need. They only had 12 shelter beds, with over 100 youths out on the street needing a place to sleep every night. When she found out about that, Bea leapt into action and volunteered to fly across the country and host a fundraiser for the center. She raised $40,000 in one night, and then did a bunch of interviews about the importance of the center to bring in more donors.
There's people in this country that kick their kids out of their house because they're gay. And the thought of that, I think, really upset her.
After that, the center could finally start expanding. But then, 3 years later, they ran into a problem. The 2008 recession had just hit, donations had slowed down, and Bea, one of their greatest advocates, passed away. The staff were heartbroken. But then they found out that Bea had left $300,000 to them in her will. That gift allowed the center to make it through the recession, through the loss of a building in Hurricane Sandy, and to set up a dozen new housing sites, a 24-hour drop-in service, and serve 1,000 youths every year. In 2017, they opened a new building with 18 long-term beds, the B. Arthur Residence for LGBT Youth, a tribute to the actress who said, "I would do anything in my power to protect children who were discarded by their parents for being LGBT." When you look across all 7 seasons of the show, nearly 200 episodes, what you see is a group of close-knit characters who formed a chosen family. Characters with active sex lives that are responsible and recreational, not about starting a family. You see multiple episodes with gay characters when there were very few on any other shows. You see dialogue that explicitly defends equality, and performers who supported their queer fans in real life. So why does The Golden Girls resonate so strongly with gay audiences? Well, back in 2006, somebody asked Rue McClanahan that very question. She said she used to wonder the same thing until one night she ran into a fan in Greenwich Village and she asked him,
"Tell me something. What is it that you gay guys like so much about Blanche?" And he said, "Are you kidding? We all want to be her."
And I think that's true. Not just the part about being popular with men, although that doesn't hurt, but also having a found family where everyone looks after each other, enjoying life and great sex even when mainstream society has counted you out, being loved so much that when you die of old age, everyone says you are gone too soon, and that when you're remembered, it's with gratitude for having been such a great friend. Now, in making this video, I discovered a ton of great stories about the Golden Girls and the actresses and the gay fans. Check out my Patreon for those at patreon.com/mattbaum. I'm working on a bonus video about the time Betty White accidentally outed Cary Grant, and I've got 5.5 hours of videos on topics like Angela Lansbury's gay husband, Ernie and Bert's couplehood, and the gay joke that led to the nanny. Thanks to everybody who makes these videos possible. And now, if you'll excuse me, someone told me there's a cat I should see.